What's going on, everybody? Welcome into a special Valentine's Day edition of 5 Minutes with Sean, maybe 10, Mental Health Monday. It also happens to be. So who better to have right now to talk about mental health than the man leading the charge, or should I say pushing up the charge, making it happen, Russ, Mann. Russ, how are you today?
I'm outstanding, Sean. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much.
It's great, man. We're really glad to have you. So, as I said, you're doing a lot of push-ups. We see you in the feed. We see a lot of people participating in this. Russ, tell us a little bit about the 22 push-ups, how it came to be, why it's important to you. And I know it's a little bit, like I said to you pre-show, a little bit of a darker place to start, as it relates to the topic, but I think it's important we continue with awareness. So why don't you kick us off? Tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, so I do 22 push-ups a day for 22 days consecutively to bring awareness to veteran suicide in the United States. There are 22 veterans every day in this country that are taking their own lives. They're doing it in a myriad of ways, right? They're addicted to opioids. It's just a sad place. And we oftentimes forget about it, especially now when we're not quote unquote at war. We don't see the after effects of what that provides. And it's a very soft spot in my heart. Because one of my friends and my own personal neighbor has PTSD. The guy was shot in the neck, lived, and now essentially, if you saw the post, one of the posts from the 22, he lights up his backyard every night from dusk till dawn, because the thing that most bothers him is the dark, because he has no idea who shot him. Right? Because he was in a dark place. He was just in the dark. So it's a major contributing factor to be able to work yourself through that and have other people support and understand, why is that guy's lights on? Like, you drive by his house, like, why has he got his lights on all night? You don't know what people go through. You don't know what that person is going through at any given time. So the more awareness that we can bring to the light and shed the light to the problem, the better off we're going to be. Mental health in general. And my father obviously was in the military for many years. I have cousins that serve in the military today. It's just a place for me that's super important, and I'm absolutely grateful for the people that continue to participate in it. Everybody I nominate throws up some push-ups, and everyone that I challenge to do it participates with it in the right space in their heart, and I'm absolutely grateful for all that they do too.
Yeah, it's got to be special. It's got to be special to see everyone doing it. You've got everybody participating from whether it's all the service people, right? It's a lot of service people that you do business with, people that you follow, that you work with. The community steps up when asked, and I think it's really awesome. I mean, you literally, as I said to you before, I can't go out my feed without seeing somebody doing push-ups. And me, people bring it outside. That's a flavor I can get into. I like the idea of seeing people do that. So that whole thing is really fun for me. But let's talk a little bit more about the dark spaces, because that was the post, Russ, that you put up, right? And it was kind of, the metaphor was really heavy at first before I got into the meat of it all, and really that the individual struggled with the actual darkness. But the darkness that comes with PTSD, I think is something that not a lot of people discuss. How, if you don't mind me asking, and you're free to not answer, but how far past military service is your neighbor?
Oh, wow. He's been out for, probably 11, 12 years now. Yep. So he's been out for a while.
See, and that's the amazing part for me, Russ. That's the part where you stop and you say, wait a second, this is still someone's struggle. that they, it's, how could they possibly get past? What are the tools? Where are they given? And I guess that's where I get a little bit frustrated, Russ, is I feel like our military is abandoned, once returning. My dad was in Vietnam, so he's told me story. I mean, I grew up with the worst of the stories, right? About returning back from war as far as our country and all of that. But we deal with this now. I don't feel like the support is there, Russ. Is that fair to say? Again, not military, don't really have anything invested in the military, but from a distance, it doesn't seem like we're in a great spot supporting these folks if we're having 22 deaths a day contributed to.
Yeah, and I wish I knew really more about what it is that they have access to. I do know that, like, I have a high school friend who has a service dog, and that service dog literally saves his life every day, right? So he can't go. You and I don't think anything of it walking into a Costco, but walking into a Costco for him is traumatic because of all the people that are around him, right? So that dog watches his back, literally watches his back. And so it's those resources and those unique things that we really have to try to bring awareness to really be able to help them on a regular basis. You talk about a dark space. I mean, he was in a dark space, and he got that dog, and it changed his world, right? So he can go to Costco just like the rest of us can. He can't be, crowds are not his friend, right? His trauma comes from being in a crowd and losing everyone in his unit in a firefight in a crowd. So people just don't understand or really realize what it is that soldiers and female soldiers go through when they return home, trying to process all of the things that they have seen and been through. It just, and my father was in Vietnam. My father was in Korea. My father was in Vietnam. My father, he didn't talk. My father didn't talk about it. When I would ask him about it, even in the last days of his life, he died of lung cancer. I would ask him to talk about his time in Vietnam, and he would not do it. He still would not do it. So, but yeah, so he was really, he was able to process his way through it himself. But my mother told me the nights that he would wake up screaming, right? So,
yeah, my dad would never discuss details. All he would say is, the idea of being welcomed home the way he was welcomed home after what he put himself through always frustrated him. That's all he'd really say about it. He wouldn't go into what he saw, why he saw it, what happened to him. And to me, I never really pushed hard on it. I've always said to him that, if he ever wanted to talk about it, but I mean, even if, like, bring your dad to school day, for like a veterans type day, no, not interested, not wanting to go through it. And you speak about something that's important, right? Is trauma. And I think when we talk about mental health, I don't think people give enough credence to the trauma of whatever it is. It could be something you find to not be as traumatic, but that has nothing to do with you. It's somebody else's trauma, something else that they went through with that. And a situation with your neighbor, Russ, think about where you would be at in your life, or what you would be trying to do with your life if you were shot in the neck in the dark in your workspace. And it's just, I realize he put it, I realize that it's the military. This is all part of the job, but still he goes off, and now today he goes off and tries to have a normal life. I mean, man, what what work that must be for him daily to keep everything from not becoming a statistic, I guess, is more my point.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you take the other neighbor that I had when we first moved in here, it's a gentleman that I did not know, but his name is Moises. And Moises took his own life on the street corner by cop around the bend from my house, 100 yards from my house. So to hear that gunshot and to know what happened after the fact was heartbreaking to me. That was really the moment. And to know that what Ian, my other neighbor, goes through every 4th of July, every New Year's. I mean, it's people just like, oh, it's just it'll be over soon. No, it doesn't work that way. And I think that in that world, it's just not something that people fully understand what they go through. And there's obviously not on the military side, this is a big deal. And you're right. I don't think that they get the support that they need. Veteran services and the VA, I'm sure they do everything that they possibly can, but there needs to be other programs like companion animals and things like that we can help to bring awareness that really benefit these veterans. And these programs literally are what end up saving their life. So
Yeah, and you talk about that, and you and I have chatted a little bit about it. I've made comments about it to anyone who will listen about the idea of plant-based medicine for PTSD and getting veterans involved and trying to do what we can to help. And my point is always the same. We can't do any worse than we're doing now. So whatever you think about it, whatever people's politics might be about the use of drugs as it relates to treating PTSD, you need to just take a step back and put yourself in a position to say, it isn't going to make it worse. That's not how this works. It either makes it better or it does nothing. And so for me, I want people to know that. But Russ, I think this is a perfect kind of way to run in, to our business. But I would feel much, again, never having been part of the military, my guess is that the bravado that exists in the car business, the manly machismo-ness that results in not talking about how you feel, not talking about what you've been through, I would assume is probably as prevalent in the military, making this discussion that much harder.
Yeah, you're probably right. You are absolutely right. That's how my father took about it, is that we don't talk about things like that. Like, as a man, we don't talk about things like that. And so when you talk about it generationally, right, that was all I was ever taught, right? You keep it in, you suck it up, you don't cry, you don't do the things that will make yourself look weak, right? And that entire generation, I'm 54 years old, the entire generation before me, that was the mindset. That is what I grew up with. That is what I was taught. When I was bullied in elementary school and junior high school, you go home, did you kick his ass? Yes, no. Well, that's too bad. Suck it up and go back. Right? I mean, that was our world. And so what that does is it creates this long-term process in our own head of not being valued. And at the end of the day, everyone deserves the opportunity to be valued. And you really want to core yourself back to my why. It's seeing other people win. Like I'm a very emotional person. Like, you get me, I see a commercial with a dog that got hurt. I mean, I tear up. It just does not take much for me. My wife will, my wife understands though now, because I literally feel everything around me. And it's I'm sure it has something to do with the way I grew up, but I had a lot of trauma in my early life. And so those are the things that I struggle with even today. Like I'm an expert in many things in the automobile industry, but I still struggle with being the expert in the room, and struggle with being the person and speaking up in a group of people. Now, with you and me having a conversation, I don't have any issue with that. Two people, one-on-one, one-on-two, something like that, no problem. I can speak my mind and do the things I need to do to be successful and push those things on other people. You put me in a group of 5 and I'm the quiet one in the corner. Because that's how I was raised, right? You put your nose down, you grind it out, you do the things that you need to do, and then let the scoreboard, like I did a lot of sports when I was a kid, because it was the only thing I felt like I was really good at them. It was the only thing that got me any kind of attention.
Sure.
So, those are the things that people go through their entire life, trying to, work their way through. And, sometimes they work through them and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, Russ, we have very similar upbringings. I mean, our ages I'm a little bit younger than you, but it's the same effect. You know what I mean? You want to make sure that, my mom was very in touch with her feelings. So I got that kind of balanced out, I guess, of my dad's kind of, Let's not. Or my dad would also take the approach of everything was just perfect. I don't know. At some point in my life, he just adopted this, like, he wasn't going to be all everything, it was, everything was just going to be perfect. Then it was a whole nother problem where you're like, well, it's definitely not perfect. Like, I don't want to make it seem like we're not making any mistakes here, because we certainly are, and we should talk about those mistakes. But no, I've always been much of a talker. In that same room of 5 people, I think many years ago, I would have been the only one talking. In that room now, I would certainly try to involve you and everyone in it, right? Because as I've gotten older, I've realized that the gift I have is of moderation, is to bring people up, to get people talking, to peel back that sort of, onion peel, if you will. But you're talking about being in a room and not feeling like the expert, albeit it, not feeling like you can be it or stand up about it. And Lori Holter was on my show a while back, and she talked about the concept of imposter syndrome. Like, we don't belong, like it's not enough for us. And I think that for a lot of people, until they really can embrace both sides of themselves, Russ, I don't even think they can see it that far to even be in the room. So I think you should give yourself credit for being there. Be quiet, that's okay, but at least you're being there, being representative of yourself, because you belong there. And sooner or later, I think you'll feel like you can actually speak and be who you are. But what have you worked on to get to that point, to even get in the room, Russ? Because I imagine it was probably difficult for you to even feel like you belong in the room, let alone be able to speak up in it.
Yeah, so there was I had a boss, a director of sales. His name was Chet, and so inclusion is really where this comes from. Asking the opinion of other people who aren't speaking up, right? So giving people an opportunity to be heard. So inclusion is a huge piece of what I think and do on a day-to-day basis. And so now in leadership positions and owning a company and helping people and dealers, grow their businesses, I want to know their opinion. And so I've been able to figure out ways to find out what their opinions are so that I can help them win. And I think that's really how I've most been able to overcome my inability to believe that I belong in the room. There are still days today when I know I've got to make a phone call to someone who I look up to, or someone that I get nervous with in and around, because I think that I don't belong there, right? So, but once I'm in the room, I'm fine, right? I do much better. But it's now that next level of forcing myself into the room. So my actions ultimately get me in the room, right? My reputation, my integrity, those are the things that get me into the room. What I do at that time when I get into it, I try to be very inclusive with it, to understand exactly, what those people are going through.
I like that idea of the opinion, and really that's something that I think has been something I've worked on throughout the years to be in the right position. We were talking with a dealer group recently that we're hoping to connect with. And if we connect with them, they'll basically bring us to capacity at my company. And it's something that we've joked about, never thought would happen. Well, here we are 9 years later almost, and it's going to happen. And during the conversation, we were sort of at a cold pitch, and it's been a long time since I've had to cold pitch my company. With someone who's just like, nope, don't know anything about it. Let's get started. And I thought they had known, and maybe they did, maybe they didn't, and it doesn't really matter, right? But they put it on me to do it. And I got done, and my business partner and I were hanging out afterwards, and he said, man, it's been a while since you had to do that. I said, yeah, that caught me off guard. I was not expecting to have to be that person today. He said, but I'm proud of you because you've changed. And I said, well, what do you mean? He said, you used to start that meeting off with, I can't help you sell more cars. If that's why you want to talk to me, let's just end the meeting now and get out of the room. That's not what I'm here to do. And he said, they asked you specifically how you'd sell them more cars, and you just asked questions, and you told them that the answer was in the question. And he's like, you got all philosophical and shit. And he goes, I don't know when this happened. I said, well, I think it's just been as my company grows and stays here, right? Every morning I wake up, I'm less worried about waking up tomorrow morning and not having my company. But that's taken a long time to get here, Russ. And now that I'm here, now I think about, well, how long can I really keep this going? Is this legitimately a 20-year business? And now it's not about tomorrow. Now it's about, well, how long can you stay here? And where does it end on each other, Russ? As entrepreneurs, the mindset, where do you find the medium to say, okay, we're good, like everything right today, good. Let's try and enjoy the good.
Yeah. So this is a very key component for me, and that is to understand and have faith that whatever happens, happens. It's going to happen, regardless of what I do or how I do it. So I've been able to, in the last couple of years, essentially since the end of 2020, a little over a year now, direct myself away from the transactional space. So when you very first started to pitch your products, when you first started, and your partner's so excited for you from today, is that because you know that whether or not you got that deal isn't going to make or break whether or not you make your mortgage.
That's correct.
Right?
That's correct.
So now you might still have the income to where you're like, oh man, I'm not sure if we're going to make the mortgage this month, but my mindset personally has shifted and said, wait a sec, like, so, and this goes down a rabbit hole for me that is long and dark. So if I stick to the transactional space of it, to me, I failed, right? Because I didn't sell a car, because I didn't do this or I didn't do that. At the end of the 30 days, I failed. I didn't get to 12 cars. I didn't get to 15 cars. I didn't get to 20 cars, whatever the number was, right? But over time, I understood that if it was the 15th of the month, I'm rolling back here. If it was the 15th of the month and I'd sold 4 cars, I knew that at the end of the 30, that I was going to get to 15, right? I knew that at the end of the 30, and when the first rolled around again, oh, the pressure of just like, shit, I'm at 0 again. That whole zero hero mentality of the transactional business that we're in wreaks havoc on your mental health when you get older. I'm telling you, because what happens is it turns into regret. You turn those things into, I missed my kid's basketball game. I missed my kids this. I missed my kids that. I'm divorced now because I wasn't here for my wife, right? It turns into all these other things. And then over time, if you're paying attention, you've learned, and you get to the space where I'm at today is, oh yeah, that guy. Oh yeah, he's calling me. Okay, well, I'm focused. I have to be present. So for me,
it's the same boat, man. It's that same thing.
Yeah. So for me to be present, like if my wife walked into my office right now, I would stop. Sean will be here for 2 minutes that she needs to say something to me. Okay. If we're having a conversation and someone calls me, I don't answer the phone anymore. 18 months ago, I'd have been like, hang on a second, right? So she used to, like, we'd go out to dinner and I'd be on my phone the entire time. She would take a picture of me, and because I'm doing deals, right? And I'm in the lending space, subprime lending. The dealer calls me at 7:00 at night. I'm answering my phone because that's a deal. That's $150 to me. That's my part of my mortgage payment, right? I answer the phone. I could be on that phone for 20 minutes trying to work through a deal, and then I'm calling an underwriter. I'm trying to find an underwriter at their house. Where's my, who, this, what, there. She'll take a picture of it and she'll post it to Facebook. My husband's still working. And it took her doing that to me enough to where one day I woke up and I credit my daughter Amanda for this. One day I woke up and went, oh my God, what the fuck are you doing? Just one day. You come to that realization, like, what the fuck are you doing? And that part of my life at 54 years old has just happened. Okay. So it's never, ever, ever, ever too late to be present.
Russ, it's a lesson I'm learning. I'm trying to be better. I mean, the other day we were getting ready to head off for our own hike, our own time. It's been a while since we've been able to get outside, dealing with some other stuff. And right when we hit the head of the trail, my phone rings. And it's one of my bigger clients. And normally it would be a whole production. And I just said, can you do me a favor, grab my phone and mute that stupid thing, make sure it does not go off again, and I will deal with that when we get back. And as I started to hike, I started to go through these emotions like, oh my God, what if he's calling to, he has a you know what? Turns out nothing he could possibly be calling me about because of my role for his dealership could actually have anything to do with humanity for the next 3 hours. It just can't. And if a building's on fire, not a fireman. If someone's been hurt, not a doctor. So to me, there's nothing, even if he found a problem or someone called him out or he found something wrong in the data or a vendor I vetted fell through the cracks, whatever it could have possibly been, wouldn't have been enough to make a difference in what really was going to change for me. And that's a hard part for people to see, man, especially being entrepreneurs, right? As an entrepreneur, I say this all the time. I used to go looking for work. If it was 8 o'clock at night and I wasn't doing something, I was like, shit, there's got to be something here to do. And that's not how you actually get it done. It doesn't have anything to do with that. What really works for entrepreneurs is do whatever you told someone you were going to do. And if that, whatever the job promised is, deliver on the job promised. And people will appreciate that, I think, now more than ever. And Russ, you're someone who's got like multiple things going on, right? You're a man of many different things. How do you kind of keep it all straight? I know we've got the new biz going on with Justin, some of the other things I know you're involved in. How do you balance all of that right now? And are you someone that is it an advantage to you to work more out of your home? Or do you wish you were someone on the road really being able to do more of that? I seem to see you a lot at the home office, so I was making assumptions.
Yeah. So for me, I put so many miles, in an airplane for many, many years. The pandemic really slowed that down. And now I've understood and figured out that I don't have to be face to face every single time. So what that boils back to is the mentality of the deal will be there, right? So what you actually described, the 8 o'clock, oh, I could be doing something right now to better the business. Yes, I still struggle with. My wife will walk in here at 6 o'clock at night. She goes, "Are you still working, or what are we doing here?" And I'm like, "Oh, all right. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm done." Right. It's a fundamental shift in the things that you have priorities for. And all my kids are older. I have 11 grandkids. But they were taught and shown this way, right? Keep working, do the things that you need to do, keep your head down, keep working, keep your head down, keep working. So I've passed it on to my own kids. My own kids are the same way. My oldest daughter, Amanda, she's the one that's really helped me to get out of my own space and to be present and rely on the fact that people will come to you when it is time. The universe itself, and I'm not a religious person, but the universe itself will find a way for you to understand that when that phone rings, it'll be there tomorrow. That's a fundamental shift in an entrepreneur's mind, because it's that might be my mortgage payment, right? That might be whatever. And so that's a hard place.
Like you said, transactionally though, I don't see people always ask me, Sean, what's the company's goal for growth this month? I don't have goals for my company. That isn't how it works for me. I got to be doing the work. I'm not worried about the 30-day ads on or the 45-day ads. At the end of a year, I look and I say, how did we do this year? Did we do better than last year? Awesome. Let's keep moving. Like I don't want to get stuck in trying to press myself to make something out of something, especially a company with a cap. I mean, or at least again, a joking cap, but now is more realistic. And I have a cap because for me, as an entrepreneur, I want my time. A lot of people see me outside. Somebody made a comment to me the other day, like, "Man, you get outside a lot. When do you work?" Why work when work's got to be done? Then when it's done, I'm living. Like I got the relationship mixed up for a long time. And now it's about doing the work so I can go live my life and not the other way around. And I think a lot of people are more, when it comes to that, it's more that you got to be every day 24/7, 365, hustle this, hustle that. I'm not that guy. Just not. And I think there's many ways to get there. But you talked about the transactional piece, the hero to zero stuff that I think a lot struggle with. Is that something that you found easier, Russ, now that you are an entrepreneur versus having a mandated 30-day cyclical number that you had to meet? Not that you don't have goals. That's not what I mean. I wasn't saying that. I just meant more like the fact that maybe it wasn't the same 12, 15 unit expectation of yourself.
So I guess really where that helps, that has changed for me is that I'm very similar to you in terms of the process. My why is to help other people win, and getting that opportunity to do that is really what drives my, air quoted transactional piece, right? If I can help, so I give you an example of an underwriter that worked for me for, frankly, not very long, but she is now in the lending rep side. Well, I'm an expert in lending reps. I mean, if you want to blow up a territory as a lender, call Russ Mann, because it's simple and straightforward. You show up, you do this, you do that. That's a lot of the transactional base of what I did. But being able to press upon her that process, that's my transaction today. So it's not that, and those happen once a week, once a month, once every 6 weeks, whenever it happens. But her success now, I had a tiny, she's still got to do the work, right? But I had a tiny little piece of that to inspire her to and look back at my past and go, look, I did this, and this. If you do this, and this, you're going to have the same result. And sure enough, we've started to see that, right? That's the part that's my transaction today. It's just something completely different than a car deal, frankly. If the check comes, the check comes.
You got to do the work part, though.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Right. It's the got to do the work part, Russ. It's the concept that I can show it to you. I can give you the tools. We can work through this. Same thing when I help dealers with marketing and all the aspects of data. It's like, look, we can set it up. We can show it to you. We can make recommendations. But ultimately, this is your business. And you will need to act on these decisions. If you do not, then someone like me is, if it makes you feel better to have us, fine. But if you're not going to utilize what we actually do, then I'm going to ask you to kind of step out of line and, we'll save the spot for somebody who wants to engage. Because really, I'm fortunate that, I don't have kids. So this is my kid. This is my life. This is what I dedicated it to, that I want to do it with those who want to do it with me. I don't want to just have a client. Like, that just never interests me. But I think a lot of people think that that's somehow, I don't know, elitist, or, you should help everyone concept. I don't think that's the case, Russ. What do you think of the idea that all customers are good customers?
So that's another rabbit hole, so to speak. I believe that if I can help you be successful, you're a good customer to me. Okay. If you take the information and you don't do the things that you need to do to become successful, I'll still be here. But I'm going to move on to something else that, one, continues to generate revenue and whys for me every day. But I'll still be here. So I'm not necessarily a proponent of firing someone, so to speak, if they're not producing the things that they want to do. But if they send me to a dark space every time the phone rings, that would generate me to fire someone. If I'm nervous every time I see the phone ring, because every time you call me, it's traumatic. You are doing things that are inappropriate or unprofessional, or unprofessional in a way that I think is inappropriate. How you treat people, how you treat your staff, what you say to your staff. Those are the things that would release me from wanting to do business with you anymore. And it's happened.
Agreed. Your lack of engagement. I mean, yeah, I'd rather you be more engaged for sure. But what I won't have is something that brings negativity to what I do or the space that we work in. We do a very specific job. We deliver on the job every month, and we told you we deliver it. And I take pride in that. And if there's a problem with it, let me know, because I'm the one who does the work. So it's not like I outsource it, right? We are the people responsible for our results, for our own destiny. But sometimes that can get difficult because you have to have those difficult conversations, Russ, with clients about that, which I'm sure you know, and explaining to people that, look, I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. My role is actually to help you understand why you brought me here, why you want me here, is to give you the hard answers sometimes. And I think those discussions can be difficult. But right now, Russ, I think it's even more difficult because frankly, I think we might be developing some bad habits during good times. And the customer service part of the car business right now seems to be severely hurting, according to a lot that I'm reading. What are you thinking and seeing on that side of things, Russ?
Yeah, it's definitely that way. Um, I had someone tell me a while ago that dealerships don't pay for culture because they think that their culture isn't broken, and they measure their culture by how much money they make, how many cars they sold, how many ROs they delivered, what their customer pay is. There's some transactional benchmark that they attribute their culture to. And if they would get away from that piece of it and understand, if they gave their staffs and empowered their staffs to take care of the customer first, that in the long run, they would make more money. The problem with that is the ego of the people in charge understanding and being stuck and not diverse enough in their staffs and their teams and their management teams to understand that inclusion of thought on the customer service side and the empowerment of those people. Yes, it's gonna be a transition. You're gonna lose the target benchmarks that you've generated for yourself in your own head, that's what success is. But in the long run, retention goes up, right? If you spend $8, I've had dealers blow up at me because they had to repo a car, as an example, because their funding didn't go through. Okay, well, how about you take care of the customer because their car blew up 30 days into it, and you didn't give them a service contract because it would have cost you $300 out of your deal. Okay, right? Think of the customer first. You're going to have losses in the beginning, but in the end, guess what? That customer comes back again and again and again and again and again. And you'll see it in dealerships that are customer service oriented today. They're very successful. They might have things that are uncommon. I thought the concept for Saturn was amazing. It wasn't about the price. It was about empowering staff to treat the customer like they were themselves. And that's really where I think the difference comes in today. The transactional benchmarks that everyone thinks of, culture and success, or go hand in hand, are not the case, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if dealers measure their culture based on retention, some of them would be in for a real shock as to what culture meant to them, or what should mean to them. And I've worked for a group that did not have any of that, and then I walked out, and apparently it opened their eyes, and now it's something that they put a lot of focus into because they don't want to lose great people, et cetera, et cetera. And you hope those things actually do make a difference, and you hope that people do see that because I think there's plenty of reasons to be in the car business, but there are probably just as many, if not more, to not be in it. And so I want to make it easier for people to get into this business. I know people want to say it'll be gone in the next 5, 7, 10 years. I think there's a bit of prematurity there. As fast as things have moved, I think things have looked like they've moved faster given the isolation of as our culture has been for 2 years. I think everything just looked faster. I think when you sit in your house and you watch someone drive by your house, it looks faster than it actually is. So I think for that sense, we need to slow down a little bit. But we had Dave Rozek on the show from Motorworks Barrington, big outfit outside of Chicago, Illinois. And they have a mental health staffer. That's her job. She has hours. She gets booked daily by staff throughout their entire organization to just chat. She doesn't even, I don't even think they even call it. It's not even therapy. It's just someone to chat with, someone to talk to. That's what culture looks like. That's what empowerment of employees looks like. And I'm not saying that you need to have that. I'm saying you need to be open about those discussions. We would never. I grew up in the Chicago car business, Russ. Okay, you don't know if anyone ever heard the word therapist, they would lose their minds. Do you know what I mean? Your manager would be like, "Wait, what? You went to a doctor or a therapist?" Like and it's like, well, they're both in that. No, the one helps you, one's a waste of money, right? So I think that as dealerships, we could definitely do ourselves a favor about moving beyond that sort of stigma as it is, guys. I think we've got big enough problems, but judging ourselves on our profit. And Russ, maybe you've noticed, I haven't seen as many record unit month posts here this year. In January and December. Doesn't sound like February is off to a great start either. But now, then what do we do, Russ? Now that we're invested in these highs, these record-only living spaces, what does one do when they don't hit records? When potentially, as high tide is, what do we do when low tide rolls in?
Yeah, you give it back to your staff, right? So Mann and Stephen Witten, you've had him on before. He's a good friend of mine, and I'm an ambassador from Mann USA, right? So the key component to mental health in the workspace is empathy and care, true care. When you ask a salesperson, if you're a GM or GSM or someone of power in a car dealership, and you ask a salesperson how they are when you're walking down the hallway and you just keep walking regardless of what their answer is, that don't fly. You don't have the ability to let that person blow themselves up and blow themselves out because you came across like you didn't care. Now, if they come across and they say, it's my kid's sick, whoop, stop, turn, be present. If leadership in car dealerships will do that, and listen and be inclusive for everyone that's in the dealership, that doesn't cost you a dime. Really, I know you got all kinds of things, and you don't have time, and you don't have this, and you don't have that. I get all that, but those are all just excuses. You have the time.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, you would have the time. If you committed to really listening to someone, you would make the time. And then don't come
Russ,
back to me.
2 minutes in the hallway, dude. It's
Yeah.
2 minutes in the hallway. No one, you know what I mean? Like, people aren't going to stop and be like, oh, well, can we talk about my whole life story right now? And I'll take up 40 minutes of your time. And frankly, if people do talk a little longer, you should have the ability to listen. And if it does go a bit long, have the ability to close it out appropriately. Have a way to be an adult, be a leader, be someone who people look up to. And if they open up to you, you should see it as a positive. You shouldn't see it as like, oh God, I got to listen to this woman tell me about her day. No, it should be like, holy shit, I am actually doing my job. This person wants to tell me about their life, and they work for us. And this is really, really important. And I think the good owners, the great owners, know that. Yes. But I believe they to be the 1%, not the, you know what I mean? They are the exception, not the rule. And we need to find more of the rules.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. And it's not always the principal. The principal might be like that, but they're not on the floor. They have other issues and other things that they need to work themselves through. It's the GMs, the GSMs, the finance directors, the finance staff, service managers, service directors, shop foremans. Those are the people that have to separate themselves from the transactional piece of it. I mean, it's not just the owner. It's the team that works for that owner, because that owner's not there day to day. That owner's not there at 8 o'clock closing out a car deal when the salesperson just missed his kid's basketball game, right? So that's really where the biggest challenge, I think, comes from. And until they learn to be inclusive and listen to what their staff has to be, they will always be transactional, in my opinion.
I completely agree. Russ, you have been awesome with your time, man. I want to wrap this up and ask you two things. One, how is everything with Stephen Witten and Mann, and how is everything going here? And what should folks know about what we got going on with that program right now?
So Mann takes, it's basically what we just described. We want the opportunity for leadership, owners, dealer principals, business owners, it doesn't have to be the car business necessarily, to have a space and a process. You brought up, you have a motor, was it Motorworks, that has an employee that is their sole job is to check on the mental health. So Menable, as we would teach the team of people to have what we call them champions, right? They have a champion in every dealership that has that same process. It doesn't have to be a leader. It can be as whoever, doesn't matter, but they know within that particular business that their champion, if they have an issue, if they have trouble, if they have whatever it is, they can go to that champion and get help. It's really kind of a springboard and an ability to make sure that everybody's tank is full, and a stop balance and check and balance to make sure that everybody's tank is full. It's not, we could do more, obviously, here in the United States. But all the things we talk about in terms of transaction and culture and all those things, people really have to stop and care first for their employees. And I think that's really where Menable in the United States is at. It's growing leaps and bounds in the UK. They have many ambassadors, many businesses that are signed up as a platinum member and are committed to their staff and their staff's mental health. But you know, that's
awesome. It's a great cause that, again, you know, from a distance, been trying to do our best to support. And Stephen was on the show. He's phenomenal. His story is one that if people don't know it, they should certainly go listen to it. Russ, I want to close this out. By the way, we started talking about your neighbor, Ian. And do I have that correct? I know we talked about a couple different names. But with Ian, is he aware of the 22 for 22, Russ? Is this something that you guys talk about? Is this something that sort of comes up? I'm just, as I go through our day and our discussion, I'm brought back to him, and I'm brought back to thinking about him in ways of supporting him. So is he aware, and what, if any, feedback is there, man?
So he is not. He is a very private person. He has a wife that he credits his wife for saving his life.
Me too. Saved my wife, saved my life. So I get that. That's a conversation anyone can get.
Yep. So he and Missy, his wife, they have two beautiful daughters now. They're both young, you know, 3 and, you know, just under a year. But no, he does not know that I do what I do. But I am his biggest advocate and his biggest fan. I'm a board member on the HOA, and they were complaining about people using string lights, and they wanted to ban string lights. And I'm like, why? Well, it's a nuisance. It's a this, or it's a that, or it's bright at night. It keeps me awake. It's like, well, how about you keep your neighbor alive? Okay. So I will always advocate from the side. I am everyone's champion that way.
Russ, you're unbelievable. And we do not have enough time in the world for me to tell you my distaste for everything HOA. All right. I cannot tell you enough. And it comes down to things just like that. Just like that. I always joke with my wife every year. I'm like, well, maybe this year I'll get on the board. She's like, yeah, right. And I'm like, yeah, right is right. Absolutely not. I cannot be involved. I am not a politician. I am not a religious man. And all of these things tend to come up in those conversations. And I have very little time or use for it. Russ, thank you so much, man. We really, really appreciate it. If people want to know more about what you're into, Russ, where should they go look for you, man?
Obviously, I'm on LinkedIn. Our website is trustsalt.com. All things automotive, finance, fixed operations, and marketing. And that's really the best place you can find me. Call me. My LinkedIn information, it's all right there. You can call me, text me, or email me at any given time. I'll do whatever I can to help you.
I have no doubt that you will, Russ. Thank you so much for your time today. You are phenomenal. Keep up the great work. And thank you to everyone who's supporting Russ and the 22 for 22. This is an unbelievable cause that we need to be talking more about. Everyone, thank you so much. Go out and have yourselves a great week. We'll see you again next week.